Hello, everybody, and welcome to another community office hour session with the Chef Infra teams. Thank you all for joining us again. This is the second one. We're pros now. We're vets. Happy to have y'all on. I'm sure everyone here and who is watching has viewed the last Infra office hour session and is familiar with all the faces on the screen. We've got some really good content to talk about today, and we're answering a bunch of community questions. So we're gonna jump right in. I'm gonna get started with these pre-flight checks, and this time I'm going super duper technical because technology rocks. So let me get my QR code. Let's see. Scan it. You can get all of our links. If you're not following us on Twitter, you should be at Chef on Twitter. And it is time now for Chef Conf. Registration is open. The link to register is also going to be in this QR code in our link tree. You'll be able to find the invitation to community Slack where you can get your questions answered. And if you ask something particularly interesting that we haven't gone over, we will answer it on this live office hour session. So that's pretty cool as well. And there are a bunch of other Twitter links and other links to our documentation, discourse, and all of that jazz that you need to be tuned into, so that way you can hear about all the latest happenings in the chef community. So scan this code so you can get a link to our link tree and just go ham from there. All right, and without further ado, let's get things kicked off. I'll share my screen now for the agenda and take it. And Sudarshan, product manager for the Infra teams, will take it away from here.
Hey everybody, hi Kaya for getting us all together for this amazing session. Very excited to be interacting once again with everybody here. There's a lot of interesting discussions in store, some nice community questions that have made it to the agenda. So hang on to this beautiful session. To begin with, I'm here to give some updates about the upcoming releases. Let's go one by one. The Infra server release. So Infra 15.x is going to have a new release that's going to happen. It has a bunch of CVE fixes along with some feature related work that has happened into it. It's a very important release that the team has been working on. We will the release is pending, and please keep a watch out. It will happen very soon. The next is we'll talk about the client and server releases. The client 17 and 18 releases. Now we've spoken about the server release. The client 18, the current major version, is going to have another release that's in the works. It will be having a bunch of fixes that have been spotted out, a bunch of CVEs, and a whole lot of other things that the team has been working on. The team is working on making the release and taking it out as soon as possible. So have a watch out on that too. And that brings us to the last impending release. Yes, I know we're doing a whole lot of releases. Just hang in with us. The client 17, the N-1 version, that is also going to get a release. For those of you who have been following, we did make a release for 17 a while ago, and then we spotted some issues. So we had to do a follow-up release, fast follow release immediately. and take it back. So please have a watch out on that. The team has been doing a lot of fixes around making the release successful without any issues. So yes, so have a watch out on that. So from the release front, there's a whole bunch of releases from all sides of infra. Infra server is going to have a release. Infra client is going to have releases on two versions. So yeah, a big call out to all the team members here. They've been working tirelessly to make these releases happen. And a big call out to some of the community members and users who have helped us in making a lot of contributions happen and getting them merged into these releases. So thank you all for making these releases happen. So before we go into the community questions and the server demos, so yeah, these are all the release related updates that we have. I think we should go into the first question after that, Kaya.
All right, let's go into the first question. The first question is from one of our faves. Hi, Ramarith, from Community Slack. Ramarith says, I realize this might be a very technical question, but it's related to the use of Chef Foundation package, which is now used to build in Chef Infra Client. What are the plans on using it with other productions such as Infra Server, Inspect, and Workstation, given how the installation paths are different between each product?
So that's thanks for calling that out, Ramrit, and thanks for being consistent with us. You are a solid one always, and thanks for being the one that we can always count on and recognize and work with continuously. So the question related to Chef Foundation packages. So when we started this project and actually made the Chef Foundation, this was intended to solve for making releases lighter and easier for more frequent releases from an infra standpoint. Uh, but we do understand that this is of immense value for the other tools too. But at this point of time, from where to invest the times and resources of the team members, we are in a situation where we want to realize the maximum potential of Chef Foundation from an infra standpoint before we can take it out as a repeatable pattern to the other tools and their releases. So we do not have a plan of taking it into the release process of other tools yet at this point of time. But point noted, Ramirez, we will be keeping this in mind when we are planning for any form of release optimizations in the other tools in the future. I hope, I know that this is not a very, very concrete answer, but I hope that this was sufficient enough for you to say that, yes, this is something that we are thinking of, but we do not have a time commitment at this point of time for this.
Okay, thank you for that, Sudarshan. Ramarith, hopefully that answers your question. At least it gives you some direction. Do you have any follow-up questions? I know you will always follow up in the community Slack, but if you happen to be watching now, drop us a comment because we love to hear from you.
Yes.
All right. The next question comes from Christina from Discourse. And you know what? Let me see. Here we go. I love how PowerPoint just lets you just make it bigger without much trouble. So Christina says she's a recipe that's failing. This is the recipe. And she started and stopped and restarted Chef Client and still gets these errors. Can anyone help?
Yep, that's me. Hey, Christina, thanks for the great question. So when I was debugging this, I think I came up with 3 or 4 questions. I think the first one is, where's the email coming from in here? But the second one is, really, what is that timer service doing? There's no real problem with the service resource in Chef. And so what I start zooming in on is what's going on with this particular block. Using the action, you can have an array of disable stop or enable start, and that's valid and that works. Excuse me. In fact, if you break out both those two blocks into their own grouping, I guess, call the service resource twice to disable and then enable, that works fine. So can I trouble you to flip the next slide? Okay. Oh, all right. That's a little too big. Anyway, so what I'm wondering about is that, there we go. Thank you. What I'm wondering about is if the timeout you're getting or the error messages are related to the timer method. And so I think I'd want to see a little bit more detail about that one to give you a better answer. But yeah, as it stands, there doesn't seem to be anything really weird with that block, and it should work fine. When I was troubleshooting this myself, I came up with a couple of things to look at. I think the first thing I want to take a look at is to make sure that the client or the service file you have in the system folder is correctly configured and correctly, like, just double check that there's no extraneous characters or that everything is as it should be. I included right there an example of what a basic service could look like to make the Chef client run with. It's about a third of the way down on that page. The next thing I'd troubleshoot is take a look at the timer method and see if you can execute that or get it to produce some kind of viable output for you on its own, and make sure it's working correctly. And then maybe then after that, reconfigure your code block to enable or disable and then re-enable the services together. I've done that, and that seems to work fine. So I know that's really vague and squishy, but hopefully that gives you a starting point to go take a look at that and troubleshoot it further.
Great. Thank you so much, John. Christina from Discourse. I hope this answers your question, or at least gives you a good starting point. Feel free to come on over to Community Slack. I'll make sure that the link is posted in the comments in your question, along with a snippet from this video for your answer. But if you have any follow-on questions, feel free to post it in the Community Slack, or if you are watching right now, drop us a comment. All right, what do we have next? Okay, from AAE 42 on Slack. Does anyone know why Chef Infra Client comes with knife on Windows but not Linux? Ubuntu more specifically. Who's going to take that one?
I can. So that should not happen. Up to Chef Infra Client 16, Knife was a part of Infra Client, but from 17 onwards, since Knife is a management tool, it was adding a host of dependencies, leading to some security issues. It was decided to be moved out of Infra Client into Workstation, where it's a better fit, as it's the management tool. But that should be uniform on all of our platforms. I have not linked to where that happens, but I think 17.0242 is the version where Knife got removed from Infra Client and then moved over into Workstation. So if you're consistently seeing that, drop us a note and we can take a look.
Thanks for that explanation, Projecta. AAE 42. If you, just like Projecta said, if you got any follow-on stuff, drop us a note in the community Slack, or if you're watching currently, go ahead and try that and drop us a comment. Let's see what else we have. Fret B from Slack asks, morning, everyone. Recently, I noticed node packages on apt systems also displays packages in RC status and possibly other status as well. Is this known or wanted behavior? He relies on node packages for knowing if a package is installed on a system or not. If this behavior is wanted, he needs to change his approach. If it's a bug, he wants to contribute and create a decent PR for OHI. Who's going to take that one?
Maybe I'll dive in. I think we discussed this
No,
internally yesterday. Sorry.
I was muted. I saw that. So this was actually opened as a PR, and there was actually some discussion with Fred on this, and we did end up merging it fairly recently. I think, like in the last week, we ended up coming to a resolution on it regarding tests and such. Yeah, there's some nuanced fields there. That DB status is part of what enables that to be able to determine that better. And so now that is in Chef Main, waiting on the next release.
Awesome. Love it when these types of things happen. Thanks, Fred B, for contributing, and then thanks, team, for being so responsive and getting this PR merged quickly. Let's see what we have next. Okay. Camber Borders from Slack asks, does anyone have any clever ways of uploading cookbooks to a multi-node Chef Infra server setup without using Knife? In a world where Chef repository exists on the disk on the Chef Infra server, I don't know. Make sense of that, because I'm not super clear on this question. Who has a way to answer the question and also explain exactly what the question is saying?
Yeah, I can answer this question. So basically, they are asking any method for uploading cookbooks other than Knife. The answer is no. Currently, we have a Knife cookbook upload is the only method available, and using policy files, they can actually solve their problem, like checking the version of dependencies mentioned in their cookbooks. So the right way here is using the policy files, since that will check the versions of dependencies mentioned in their cookbooks. Unlike the bulk self, that only checks the existing of dependencies, not the versions. So that's the answer from us.
Awesome. Thank you, Shahid, for that answer. Camber Borders from Slack, if you have any additional questions, feel free to drop us a note. If you're watching now, drop us a comment. We'd love to chat. Next, we have the Infra Server demos and discussion portion. Thanks, team, for answering all of those community questions. Really helpful. Gotten feedback from the community saying that just being able to get these questions answered is definitely helpful. It's what we need. So shout out to you guys for being willing to answer these questions on live. Who is taking the Infra Server demos and discussion portion?
This one's me. So something we haven't talked about much, but we added back in must have been December of 2021, is the ability to enable cookbook version caching. So there's a certain set of circumstances in which you might find, since they're around that version, CPU usage has increased. You might see other symptoms also, increased 503s, increased latency for database requests or timeouts, and increased authentication timeouts. If you're running a very high traffic server, usually with thousands of nodes or more checking in on a regular basis, the Erlang system that we use to run a Chef server had some changes made to the way it does garbage collection. And this has kind of rippled through our system, specifically in resolving cookbooks as a source of slowdown. So if you're doing a lot of cookbook resolution from your clients, a lot of frequent client check-ins, that can put more load than it used to on the servers. So we added this cookbook caching enabled flag to kind of help work around that. And in the high traffic installations we've seen, this has increased performance and reduced CPU by significant amounts, by as much as 75% for CPU usage reduction. So again, if you're you have thousands of nodes checking in frequently against a single server or a multiple front-end cluster. If they are not using policy file or local or Chef Zero mode, but they're using Chef Server to resolve their dependencies, enabling this flag can be a big help for your setup.
Awesome. Any questions about that? Feel free to drop it in the comments. Thank you so much for walking us through that. Next, and certainly, well, last but certainly not least, we've got a demo video. Let me go on ahead and play that. And folks here on the call, let me know if you can't hear.
Hey, hello folks. I'll be giving a demo about bootstrapping and how we can replace the node for that particular configuration in the node. So here I have a setup. So here is the workstation. So, and I have already spinned up a Chef server and I have installed Chef server in this node. And I have two nodes for this demo purpose. And in this node, I have Chef server running. Let me just show you the status of that. Chef server Kettle status, and it is up and running. I have configured my workstation to connect to this Chef server. As you can see, there are config files in .chef folder, the admin.pem, knife.rb, and I have already downloaded the certificates from the Chef server. Just to give you the status of this particular environment, let me run through certain commands. As you have already seen the status, and there are two users, one which is created by default, and I have created a user called admin. And coming to the org, I have created a org called test org. Yeah. So this is the current status. And coming to the configurations from knife perspective, as of now, there are no nodes connected to the Chef server. As you can see, it returned nil. And there would be one client, which is the Chef server organization, test org validator. And then the user list would be org, since I have the admin, since I have just connected to the test org. So this is the current status. And let me just quickly bootstrap this particular node here. Created a client, created a node called test client. So basically, I'm connecting to this particular server, asking it to be bootstrapped. And I'm just passing the username, password, and the sudo, and the name for this particular node, which I'm calling it as test client. As you can see that the bootstrap is successful here, and we can quickly go over the client machine and see the status here. Sudo -i and ls -am slash. As you can see, there are a bunch of configuration file set up here for Chef client to connect to the Chef server. And if I just quickly do cat slash chef, if we have to see the client.rb file here, it shows the connection to the our Chef server and all the other, like our organization and with the other configuration are all written into this client.rb file here. And we have the client.pen here, which is used to authenticate the connection between client and the server. If I so next, what I'm going to demo here is there was one particular question. If we can just save these two configurations and can we connect to the Chef server using just these two configuration if we have it in another machine. So here in this machine, I don't have anything as of now installed here. Less -al /etc/ there is no such file as etc/chef, and it is not installed anything as of now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to copy over this /etc/chef into this new machine. So then I'll try to connect the Chef client to the Chef server from this machine and see whether it will be able to connect or not. So I have already configure the connection between these two. I'm just going to do quick SCP from r/etc/chef to our this node. This would be the second node. Colon. Let me just have it in the home folder. Oh, okay. Sorry. One two at the rate. Yeah. So we have our file. Where would that be? Slash homes slash Ubuntu. And yeah, here we have the file, and we are just going to move this over slash home slash Ubuntu chef to slash etc directory. Now let us do a quick ls slash etc slash chef. Yeah, so we have all the client.rb, client.pam, which were there in this particular node, has been transferred to this node. And let me just do chef client quickly here and see if it is able to connect to that particular node. As you can see, since I have not added any run list, so it is basically able to connect to the chef server and able to continue whatever the it acts as the same node basically. So this is the demo for this. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that demo. I love pre-recorded demos because when you're doing things live, there's always a margin for error. So love that. Does anybody else have anything to call out from the team before we wrap up and check for comments from viewers? Let's see. I've got anything. Nothing else from the team? All right. I don't see any additional comments or questions on Slack, LinkedIn, or any of the chats. So I guess we're good to wrap this one up. Another successful office hours session. Thank you all for joining.
Another successful one. Thanks to you, Kaya.
Thank you.
You know, I try. Thank you all. Couldn't do it without y'all. Awesome. Well,
Thanks to all the
until
folks
next time.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. Yep. Couldn't do it without the teams, couldn't do it without the community. So definitely let's keep this going. I appreciate everybody. Until next time, see y'all in 5 weeks.